On today's episode of You Asked, is the Panasonic W95A for less than $400 a good deal, or should you go with a slightly more expensive OLED? How do you determine which HDMI cables are best, and when is the right time to upgrade your soundbar surround system? Welcome back to the channel, everyone. This is You Asked, the show where we answer your tech questions. If you've got something you want to know, send your question to youasked@digitaltrends.com, and don't forget to tune into the show to see if your question has been selected. Our first question comes from Chuck, who says, I have now watched every dang one of your videos twice, a few even more. I'm sold on Panasonic. Chuck lists processor history and the fact that he's been using a Fire TV Cube for 10 to 15 years, so he's comfortable with that operating system. Chuck continues, I can get a factory refurbished 55-inch W95A mini-LED TV for $377 or a Z85 OLED for $677. I was aiming for the $500 range, but I can stretch it. This will replace a 50-inch Sony Bravia LED. I can also get a new mini LED for around $600. I do about 2 hours of streaming per day between movies and programming in a dimly lit but not dark room. I generally watch the TV angled out on a wall-mounted arm. While sitting at the kitchen table, I listen through headphones. My priorities? Contrast, true color, detail, and brightness in that order. My worry with the OLED is that bright scenes will just look dull and that it's slightly outdated tech. My worry with the mini LED is that I won't see that much improvement in picture quality. First of all, Chuck, you win the award for painting the best picture of your setup and goals for whatever your next setup is, and that helps a lot, especially since there's a lot to think about here. Now, without having seen the exact amount of light in the room, it's hard to nail down exactly how bright of a TV you need to go with, but you mentioned it's dimly lit, so I think the OLED should be fine. Not to mention, you listed contrast and true color as your top priorities, and that's where OLED is going to be a clear step above mini LED. Throwing in my 2 cents and noting that in this scenario, the only TV I've put eyes on myself is the W95A, I do like that TV a lot. With that added brightness, HDR content looks great with lots of sparkle in the highlights, and you get considerably more brightness with SDR viewing. So truly, it comes down to 2 things. Contrast versus brightness. As long as the Z85 OLED is bright enough, it's going to be the winner for you. But if it's not bright enough, rest assured that the W95A's contrast should satisfy you and be a step up from the 50-inch LED TV it's replacing, assuming that it's just a plain LED TV and not one of Sony's Bravia mini LED TVs or anything like that. Personally, I'm a better safe than sorry kind of guy. So if I didn't want to go through the hassle of getting the OLED, it not being bright enough, and then needing to return it, I'd just go with the W95A and call it a day. But I'm not sure if that's how you operate. If you're always going to wonder about what could have been, go with the Z85 since you placed an emphasis on contrast and OLED is as good as it gets. Next up, Simply JHE says, I'm still torn between mini LED and OLED for my upgrade. Currently looking at the LG C4 and G4 or the Hisense U8NQ. What do you think? I'm viewing from 10 feet and in a spacious living room. Well, first off, I like these options. And you didn't mention a budget or what your current setup is, but if money isn't a big factor, go OLED. And specifically, get the LG G4. It's a phenomenal TV and one of the best that we saw last year. Rich colors, all the contrast you could ask for, and the brightness of an MLA panel make it an absolute stunner. I could leave it there, but I will add a few things to consider as you get closer to pulling the trigger. If it comes down to size and price affecting the decision, I would go with OLED unless it's a significant difference in size. Like if it's a 100-inch Hisense against a 65-inch LG OLED, that might sway my decision a little if you have room for a 100-inch TV. Otherwise, I have a 65-inch TV in my own living room with an 8 to 10 foot viewing distance, and I love it for watching movies, especially when I can turn the lights off and let the TV dominate the room. When it comes to deciding between the C4 and G4, I'd say go with whichever one can get you at least 65 inches. And if your budget allows you to get the C4 at a bigger size than the G4, maybe consider going bigger if you want an even more immersive experience. And in fact, that last part helps me answer the next question, which comes from Augur SC, which reads, would you recommend a 65-inch LG C4 or 55-inch LG G4? Both are about the same price, and I keep going back and forth on it. Straight up, my vote here would be 65 inches. Sure, if you put them side by side, you probably see a difference between the C4 and G4 when it comes to picture quality, but that's not to say at all that the LG C4 is not a good TV. Far from it. Year after year, LG's C-Series TVs are always attractive to me because of the price to performance ratio. You're not breaking the bank like you might for the best of the best OLED TVs, but it's always a gorgeous picture that's plenty bright enough. In this case, the size will benefit you more than the step up in picture quality. Our last question is a doozy that comes from John H. He says, I have 3 topics if you don't mind me asking. First, with all the generations of HDMI cables, what is your best way of distinguishing the different generations? I've seen online to look for specific words on the cables, things like high speed or high speed with Ethernet, super, etc. However, there has to be a better way of telling, especially when there's no wording on the cables. Do you have any suggestions other than plugging them in one by one? Second, you guys mentioned a time range for TV replacement. Just buying a TV and or just to see major differences is about 5 years, if I didn't misquote you. My question is, what do you think is the time frame for replacing soundbars or sound systems? I ask because I have an LG G4 with a Vizio 5.1.2 soundbar surround system. It has ARC connectivity, and even though I had to complete an update to get it to work nicely with the TV, I'm stuck thinking if I should upgrade to the newer version of my soundbar, get a new sound system and brand, or should I just wait for newer advancements down the pipeline? And 3, what is your recommendation on how to move TVs bigger than 65 inches on swivel and mount stands? Specifically with the LG G4, I'm grabbing from the top and bottom to pull out to swivel the TV, but when putting it back, I have to use the same areas to push it back, but putting my hands on the screen side and applying some force to push it back. Any recommendations will help. Okay, I just need like 5 seconds to digest everything that I just read. Okay, no more time to waste. Let's get into it, John. When it comes to HDMI cables, I'm a pretty simple person with simple decision making. I tend to go with what's recommended by the products I'm connecting to. For example, the cables I use for my PS5 are officially licensed by PlayStation, so I trust that's what will get the job done. And sure enough, I've been getting the best performance available from my TV. To be safe, look for cables labeled premium certified, which means they are licensed to pass 4K content. Monoprice is a good starting point for such cables that are fairly priced and perform well. But another good rule of thumb is, if it works, it works. If your cable is passing a signal to deliver the content properly, there's not a better cable that will do a better job of sending it. All that to say, look for premium certified, try not to overpay, and honestly, err on the side of going cheaper from somewhere with a good return policy. If it doesn't work, you can try again, but at least you can avoid overpaying. And I know you said in your question a better solution than trying them one by one, but that's kind of where we're at, unless someone in the comments can have a better suggestion for you. Question 2, soundbar system replacement. I wouldn't say this is my expertise, but since it sounds like you've gotten your system to work, as long as it does so without a headache or issues dropping the connection or anything like that, keep riding it out. I'd say it's worth upgrading when you have the budget and it's a significant upgrade, not just an upgrade to the set that you already have. If you can go wireless where you previously had wires, if you can add components for a good price, or if it's just a great deal, then it's probably worth it. But if you're enjoying it, keep on doing so until something actually really breaks. Finally, recommendation for moving the G4 on a swivel. I think you're doing it just fine. TVs are more durable than you think. You should see some of the condition some of the boxes that we've taken off of trucks are in. On several occasions, we've been concerned, but rarely have I seen an actual issue, at least in the 2 years that I've been here. So I think as long as you're not really stressing your screen, you're moving it just fine. If it really bothers you placing hands on it, maybe do so with a microfiber towel, but that's all I got. I'd be curious to hear what others have to say on this matter though. in the comments. Thanks for the questions this week, everyone. Be sure to keep getting them in to youasked@digitaltrends.com. We're always happy to help where we can. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.